A lot of people don't understand this, but self-respect is one of the most powerful tools a person can have in a relationship. And I'm talking specifically to women right now, because you've been out here giving your love, your time, your energy, everything you've got to a man. And sometimes he doesn't even notice. He's comfortable. He's taken for granted. And you're standing there thinking, maybe if you love him harder, he'll finally see what he's got. But here's the truth. Loving a man too much, without boundaries, is like feeding a lion and hoping it won't bite you. You see, he only respects the love that's attached to a backbone, attached to a boundary, attached to someone who knows their worth. A man will never fully appreciate what you bring to the table until he sees that you're not going to settle for anything less than respect. And when I say respect, I don't mean just being polite or listening to him complain. I mean respect in how you allow him to treat you and how you demand to be seen and heard, in how you refuse to let someone trample on your value. Self-respect is that quiet power that says, I'm not desperate. I'm not here to prove anything to you. I know my worth. And if you don't see it, that's on you. That's the kind of energy that grabs attention. That's the kind of energy that makes a man sit up and say, wait a minute, she's not going to put up with my nonsense. I better step up. Now let's talk about why this works. When you respect yourself, you automatically raise your standards. You don't have to yell. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to beg. You just live your life in a way that makes it clear what you will and won't tolerate. And here's the kicker. Most men don't respond to words. They respond to actions. So when you walk away from a man who's undervaluing you, when you stop chasing him, when you start focusing on yourself and your happiness, that action speaks louder than any speech could. It sends a message without you even having to say a word. I know my worth. And if you don't, it's your loss. Let me give you an example. I've seen women do this all the time, and it's beautiful to watch. There's a woman who's been in a relationship for years. She's always the one to reach out, to make plans, to compromise. The man is comfortable, and he's used to her showing up for him no matter what. Then one day, she decides enough is enough. She stops texting him first. She stops rearranging her life to fit his schedule. She stops bending over backward to make him happy. And let me tell you, almost immediately, his brain starts spinning. He starts wondering why she's not around, why she's not responding. He starts remembering all the little things she did for him, the sacrifices, the care, the attention. And that's when he begins to realize she's not just anyone. She's the woman he's been taking for granted. The reason self-respect commands attention is simple. Men respect what they can't control. And when a woman is constantly available, constantly bending over backward to make the relationship work, she becomes predictable. She becomes easy. And humans, by nature, often undervalue the predictable. But the moment she steps back, the moment she sets boundaries, suddenly she becomes rare. Suddenly she becomes valuable. And that value is magnetic. It draws his attention. Not because she changed who she is, but because she reminded him who she is. Someone with worth, someone with dignity, someone who won't settle for less than she deserves. And let's not confuse this with playing games. I hear people say, oh, she's just trying to manipulate him. No, honey, this isn't manipulation. This is self-respect in action. It's about showing that your love isn't cheap. Your time isn't cheap. Your energy isn't cheap. And if he doesn't recognize that, then that's on him. You can't force someone to value you, but you can make sure they don't take you for granted. That's the beauty of self-respect. It's quiet. It's dignified. It does scream. It does beg. But it speaks volumes in the way you carry yourself. Now here, Another thing, when a man starts realizing that you respect yourself, his mind starts working in ways it never did before. He begins thinking about you constantly. He begins remembering the good moments, the way you made him feel, the way life was better when you were there. And that's exactly what you want. Not because you want to hurt him or punish him, but because you want him to finally understand the value of the person he had in his life. You walked away not out of spite, but because you know your worth. And that realization, when it hits him, can change everything. And here, a tip that most women don to realize self-respect is attractive. It is the number one quality that makes a man invest in a woman. You can have looks, you can have charm, you can have all the other things society tells you matter. But if you don't respect yourself, a man won't truly see you. But if you hold your ground, if you set your standards, if you make it clear that you won, settle for less, suddenly your energy changes. Your aura changes. You become magnetic. And not just any man, but the man who's supposed to be in your life. The one who truly deserves you, he will notice. He will pay attention. He will realize that the love, the care, the devotion you offer is not something to be taken lightly. So, ladies, remember this. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not about being cold or unloving. It is about understanding your value and refusing to let anyone diminish it. It is about showing a man through your actions that you are worthy of the love and respect he gives to you. When he sees that, when he starts to realize that he's losing you, that is when he starts thinking about you in ways he never did before. That is when he begins to understand that your love is just something he can take for granted. It as something rare, something valuable, something that deserves appreciation. And that, my friends, is why self-respect commands attention. Because a man who respects himself will respect you. A man who values himself will see the woman who stands tall, who refuses to settle, who walks away when disrespected, and he'll think twice before ever taking her for granted. That's the power you hold. And when you understand it, when you embrace it, you no longer have to beg for attention, because the right kind of attention comes to those who know their worth. So start practicing it today. Stand firm in your boundaries. Don't chase him. Don't plead. Don't compromise your standards for temporary comfort. Love yourself enough to walk away if you need to, because that's when he starts seeing you for who you really are. That's when your self-respect becomes the magnet that makes him realize that he's not just thinking about you, he's thinking about losing you. And losing you is a thought he can't shake. Now let me tell you something about absence. So many people underestimate the power of stepping back, of giving space, and allowing a man to see what it's like when you're not constantly there. Women think they have to be everywhere all the time, checking in, making sure he's happy, fixing problems, smoothing things over. And the problem is, when you're always there, it becomes background noise. He gets used to you. He assumes you'll always be there, and suddenly your love doesn't feel special anymore because he doesn't have to work for it. But absence is a whole different game. Absence creates clarity, and clarity makes a man realize what he's been missing. You see, when you start creating distance, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect and necessity, he begins to notice things he never noticed before. He begins to see the little ways you made his life better. The little gestures, the love, the care, the laughter, the support, all the things he's been taking for granted. And now, all of a sudden, it's like a fog lifts, and he can see you for who you truly are. He starts thinking, wait a minute, she's not here, and I didn't even realize how much I needed her. Think about it like this. If you always sit at the table, he never learned to appreciate your presence. Because it's constant, it's predictable. But the moment you step away, When you stop answering every call, when you stop showing up at every opportunity, now your absence becomes noticeable. It's like when the lights go out and suddenly you see everything in a room that you didn't notice before. That's what absence does. It forces reflection. It forces him to confront his own behavior, to examine his feelings, and to recognize the impact you had on his life. And here's the thing. Men often need this wake-up call. They don't always process emotions the same way women do. Sometimes a man has to feel the void before he fully understands the value of what he had. And that void, that's created by absence. When you start focusing on yourself, when you start living your life without waiting on him to get it together, it leaves a space in his mind and heart that can't be ignored. He starts replaying moments in his head, remembering the times he laughed at your jokes, the way you supported him, the way life just felt better with you around. And that's when clarity hits. He starts to realize, I can't just take her for granted anymore. She's a rare gem, and I've been blind to it. Absence doesn't mean you stop loving. Absence doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you love yourself enough to let him feel the consequences of his actions, to let him see what it's like when you're not immediately available, to make him feel good. And that, my friends, is where the magic happens. You can't teach a man respect or appreciation by staying in the same pattern and letting him coast. You've got to create a situation where he has to think, where he has to question, where he has to reflect. And reflection doesn't happen when you are constantly there. Reflection happens in absence. Now, I've seen it time and time again. A woman who's been in a relationship for years, given everything she has, finally decides to step back. She starts focusing on her friends, her family, her hobbies, her career, things that bring her joy outside the relationship. She stops dropping everything just to accommodate him. She stops waiting for him to reach out first, and almost immediately he notices the change. At first, he might get confused. He might feel a little frustrated, but slowly, he begins to reflect on how his actions or inactions have contributed to this distance. And that reflection is the first step toward clarity. And here is the beauty of it. Absence doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to slam doors, post passive-aggressive messages, or make him feel like he's being punished. Absence can be quiet, dignified, natural. It is about living your life, enjoying your own company, and letting him see that your happiness does depend on his validation. And when he realizes that, when he sees the life you are building without him constantly in the driver's seat, it forces him to examine his own priorities. It forces him to see the value of what he had before it's too late. Another thing about absence is that it highlights the contrast between him and what you bring into his life. When you're always around, he might not notice the difference between him being attentive and him being absent-minded. But when you create space, he starts to feel the void, the silence, the lack of laughter, the missing support, the missing spark. That void is a mirror. It reflects back to him everything he took for granted, everything he did to appreciate. And suddenly he is confronted with the reality that losing you would be a bigger loss than he imagined. This isn't about manipulation. I want you to hear me clearly. This is about creating awareness, not playing games. Men often don't see the value of something until it's not in front of them. Absence is the most powerful way to show that value without having to say a word. It's about living with dignity, living with self-respect, and letting your actions, or in this case your absence, teach him a lesson he might not have learned otherwise. And once he begins to grasp that lesson, once he begins to see your worth, that's when his thoughts start turning toward you in ways they never did before. That's when he begins to realize that you're not just someone who fills space in his life, but someone who completes it. So when you're tempted to always be there, always answering, always chasing. Remember the power of absence. Remember that clarity doesn't come from constant presence. It comes from distance, from reflection, from giving him a chance to see the love he's been taking for granted. Absence is a tool, a powerful, quiet tool that can shift a man's perspective, change the dynamics of a relationship, and make him recognize the true value of the woman he's lucky to have. When you master absence, you master attention. You master the art of being seen without begging, of being valued without pleading, and of being loved for the right reasons. And let me tell you, once a man sees that you're not just going to be there for him no matter what, once he feels the space you've created, that's when he begins to understand the depth of what he's lost. That's when absence does its work. It creates clarity, and clarity brings understanding, and understanding, my friends, can turn everything around. Now let's talk about something most people underestimate in relationships, and that's the power of emotional impact. Too many people think love is just about the physical, just about being there, or just about doing the same things over and over. But real love, the kind that sticks in a man's mind, the kind that he can't stop thinking about, comes from emotional impact. It's those moments that make him feel deeply, that make him realize, wow, this woman is different. She's not like anyone else I've ever known. Emotional impact is not manipulation. It's not a trick. It's about being genuine, being authentic, and showing him a side of love that hits him at his core. Think about it. A man can be surrounded by women, but most of them never make a lasting impression because they never leave an emotional footprint. They smile, they laugh, they talk, they're nice, but nothing resonates, nothing sticks. But the woman who knows how to create emotional impact, she leaves a mark. He remembers the way she laughed at something ridiculous, the way she comforted him when he was down, the way her touch made him feel safe. Those moments, even if small, accumulate. They build a memory, a connection, a feeling that he can't ignore. And the amazing thing is, emotional impact doesn't cost anything. It's not about fancy dinners or expensive gifts. It's about the depth of feeling you give and the authenticity behind it. And let me tell you, men may not always admit it right away. They might act like they don't notice, like they're too busy or too tough to care. But emotional impact works quietly in the background of his mind. It lingers. It plays over and over in his thoughts when he's alone, when he's driving, when he's just sitting in his own head. Those moments come back to him. That joke you shared, that advice you gave, that encouragement when he was struggling, all of that becomes part of his memory of you. That's how you get inside his mind without even trying. That's how you make him think about you long after you've left the room. The key to emotional impact is consistency and authenticity. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to stage moments or create drama. What matters is that when you're with him, you're fully present. When you listen, you really listen. When you care, you really care. That kind of emotional presence is rare. Most people go through relationships distracted, checking phones, thinking about something else, missing the moment. But when a woman gives her full attention, when she shows that she genuinely cares, that leaves an impression a man can shake. That is emotional impact in its purest form. Let me give you an example. I know a woman who's been in a long-term relationship. She doesn't do anything extravagant. She does buy expensive gifts or constantly plan surprises. But she listens when he talks about his day. She remembers small details, like what he said he liked or what frustrated him. She supports his goals, encourages him to be better, and celebrates his wins like they were her own. And over time, he starts realizing, nobody else makes me feel like this. Nobody else pays attention to me the way she does. Nobody else understands me like she does. That emotional imprint stays with him. It becomes a part of how he thinks about love, how he thinks about connection, and ultimately how he thinks about her. Another powerful aspect of emotional impact is vulnerability. Most men respect a woman who can show her heart without fear. They respect honesty. They respect depth. They respect someone who is too afraid to express feelings, because that is rare. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, when you share your true thoughts, your fears, your dreams, it creates a bond that is unforgettable. That's how you create emotional impact. That is how you leave him thinking about you long after a conversation ends. It is not weakness. It is strength. Strength to be real, strength to connect, and strength to show him that love is more than surface level. And here, something else. Emotional impact is just about the big gestures or dramatic moments. It is about the little things that hit him where it counts. A supportive word when he's frustrated, a smile that lights up the room, a laugh that makes him forget his troubles for a moment. Emotional impact accumulates through these tiny, genuine moments. You don't have to force it. You just have to be yourself, but intentionally, consciously showing the love, care, and attention that most people are too lazy or distracted to offer. That's the kind of love that sticks. And let's not forget the silent power of emotional impact. Sometimes it's not about saying anything at all. It's about the way you carry yourself, the energy you bring, the consistency of your presence, and the depth of your feelings. A man can feel that without words. He can sense it in your actions, in your tone, in your demeanor. And when he does, he starts replaying it in his head, thinking about you when you're not around, wondering why he didn't appreciate it sooner, realizing he's been touched in ways he didn't even know he needed. Emotional impact also teaches a man to value moments instead of taking them for granted. When you create memories that resonate, you force him to pause and reflect. He begins to see that you're not just another person in his life. You're a force, a presence, someone who adds depth and meaning to his experiences. And once he realizes that, he starts thinking about you constantly, not because you're controlling him, not because you're forcing feelings, but because genuine, consistent emotional impact is unforgettable. It leaves a mark that sticks. So if you want to be unforgettable to a man, if you want to be the woman who's always on his mind, focus on emotional impact. Focus on being present, being authentic, being caring, being consistent, and being vulnerable. These things may seem simple, but they're incredibly powerful. Most people never master them. Most people never understand that the real key to love isn't grand gestures or material things. It's emotional presence. It's showing a man that you care in ways that resonate on a deep level, that make him think about you when you're not around, that make him realize that losing you would be a loss he can't recover from. Emotional impact is quiet but powerful. It's subtle but unforgettable. It's not about forcing attention. It's about earning it through authenticity, care, and consistent presence. And when a man experiences it, when he feels it over time, it changes everything. It shifts his perspective. It deepens his connection. And it ensures that you stay in his mind long after you walked away. That, my friends, is the true power of emotional impact. Let me tell you something. Love is a powerful thing, but it also one of the most undervalued things in the world. Too many people think love is automatic, like it just shows up and keeps going no matter what. And the truth is, it does teach. Love has to be nurtured. Love has to be appreciated. Love has to be recognized. And when a man takes it for granted, when he assumes it will always be there, no matter how he treats you, that when problems start. That is when relationships falter. That is when the woman who gave her heart fully, without hesitation, starts feeling invisible, unappreciated, and sometimes even resentful. Because love, real love, should never be taken for granted. I see it all the time. A woman pours her heart into a man. She sacrifices, she compromises, she supports him, she cheers him on, and what does she get in return? Complacency. He stops noticing the little things. He stops making an effort. He assumes that because she loves him, she'll always be there no matter how he acts. And that is dangerous. That is not love. That is taking advantage. Love is sacred. Love is valuable. And when a man does to recognize that, it is a sign that he does to fully appreciate the gift he's been given. Here's the thing. Love is not something you earn once and then it is guaranteed forever. Love is a living, breathing thing. It has to be fed. It has to be respected. It has to be reciprocated. And when a man fails to recognize that when he assumes you all stay, no matter what, he's blind to the power he holds in your love. A woman's heart is not a toy. It's not something you get to play with whenever it's convenient. It's a treasure. And if he treats it ordinary, if he takes it for granted, he's doing himself a disservice and he's robbing himself of a truly fulfilling connection. I remember talking to a woman once who said she felt invisible in her relationship. She was constantly giving, constantly loving, constantly caring, and he never seemed to notice. He never said thank you. He never acknowledged her efforts. He never reciprocated the energy she put in. And I told her, baby, when a man doesn't see your love, that's on him, not you. But the key is to recognize your worth, because no man should ever make you feel like your love is invisible. And she realized that she had been allowing her love to be taken for granted and that she had to make a choice. Either step back and let him realize what he's losing, or continue pouring into a man who didn't appreciate it. Taking love for granted happens slowly.